arrived at my mountain lodge in the Rockies after a 2-hour drive, exhausted from months of stress at my consulting firm. I built this place with my own hands 30 years ago as a refuge. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw my son Derek's truck and multiple unfamiliar vehicles. The front door was wide open. Inside, I found Derek, his wife Brenda, and Brenda's entire family sprawling across my furniture, eating my food. When Derek saw me, my son sneered and said, "What's a bottom feeder like you doing in my place?" The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood in the doorway of my own lodge, the place where my late wife Sarah and I had spent countless weekends, where we had raised our children, where her ashes were scattered in the garden out back. My hands trembled as I gripped the doorframe. "Derek, what are you talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is my lodge. I built it." My son stood up from the leather couch I had bought 20 years ago, the one Sarah picked out. He was 38 years old now, tall and broad-shouldered, but the sneer on his face made him look ugly. Brenda sat beside him, a thin woman with sharp features and cold eyes. Around the room, I saw people I didn't recognize, older folks and a couple of younger men built like linebackers. "Your lodge?" Derek laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the log walls. "Dad, you really are losing it, aren't you?" He walked to the coffee table and picked up a manila folder. My stomach dropped. Something was very wrong here. "You gave me this place 3 years ago," Derek said, pulling out papers. "Thanksgiving dinner, remember? You said you were getting too old to maintain it, and you wanted me to have it." I shook my head. "I never said that. I never gave you anything." Derek thrust the papers toward me. I took them with shaking hands. They were deed transfer documents, notarized and official-looking, with what appeared to be my signature at the bottom. The date was from 3 years ago, just like Derek said, but I had no memory of this. None at all. "This is impossible," I whispered. "I didn't sign this." "Sure you did," Brenda chimed in, standing up beside Derek. "You just don't remember. You're getting old, Clement. Your memory isn't what it used to be." An older man rose from the armchair near the fireplace. He was massive, probably 6'4" and 250 pounds, with gray hair and a face like weathered granite. "I'm Harold," he said, "Brenda's father. We've been living here for 6 months, fixing the place up. It was in pretty bad shape when we moved in." 6 months? I had been here just 8 months ago, in February, to check on things after the winter. Everything had been fine then. I looked around the room with new eyes. My father's antique rifle collection, which had hung above the mantel, was gone. The landscape paintings Sarah had created, her pride and joy, were missing from the walls. The shelves where we kept photo albums and mementos were empty. "Where are my things?" I asked, my voice rising. "My father's rifles, Sarah's paintings, the photo albums." "Oh, that junk." Brenda waved her hand dismissively. "We cleaned all that out. The place needed updating. We donated most of it." "Donated?" I felt the blood drain from my face. Those rifles were worth over $30,000. Sarah's paintings were irreplaceable. "You had no right." "We had every right," Derek said, his voice hard. "This is my property now, legally. See?" He tapped the deed transfer papers still in my hand. "That's your signature, Dad. Notarized and everything. You gave this place to me." 2 younger men stood up from the dining table. They were both in their 30s, muscular and intimidating. They moved closer to me, not threatening exactly, but making their presence known. "These are my brothers," Brenda said. "Gary and Phil. They've been helping with the renovations." I looked at the papers again. The signature did look like mine, but I knew I had never signed these documents. This was forgery. It had to be. "This isn't real," I said. "I never signed this. You forged my signature." Derek's face darkened. "Now you're calling me a criminal? Jesus. Dad, you really have lost it. Maybe Brenda's right. Maybe you are going senile." "I am not senile," I shouted. "I remember everything. I remember being here in February. I remember every detail of building this place. I remember Sarah choosing every piece of furniture. And I remember never, ever agreeing to give it to you." Harold stepped forward, and I instinctively stepped back. The man was enormous. "Look, Clement," Harold said, his voice falsely sympathetic. "Nobody's trying to hurt you here. But the facts are the facts. You signed the papers. We've been improving the property. You're 70 years old. It's natural to forget things. I'm 68, I corrected automatically. And I haven't forgotten anything." Sure. Harold nodded like he was humoring a child. "But maybe you should talk to someone. A doctor, maybe. Get checked out." I looked at my son. "Derek, please, tell me the truth. You forged those papers, didn't you?" For just a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt, fear, but then it was gone, replaced by that same cold sneer. "I need to make a phone call," I said, pulling out my cell phone. Derek laughed. "Go ahead, old man. Call whoever you want. Call the cops, call a lawyer, call the president for all I care. This is legally my property now. Those are official documents. You signed them. End of story." I turned and walked out onto the front porch, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Behind me, I heard Brenda say something and several people laugh. I dialed Martin's number. Martin Hayes had been my attorney for 40 years, since we were both young men starting out in Denver. He answered on the third ring. "Clement, good to hear from you. What's going on?" "Martin, I'm at the lodge. Derek is here with his wife's whole family. They're claiming I gave them the property. They have deed transfer papers with my signature, but I never signed anything. I think it's forgery." There was a long pause. "Do you have the papers with you?" "I'm looking at them now." I read him the document numbers and details. "Okay, I'll look into this right away. But Clement, I have to warn you, this could take time. If the deed has been officially registered and notarized, we'll need to prove forgery. That means forensic document analysis, possibly a lawsuit. We're talking weeks or months." My heart sank. Months, at minimum. And if Derek contests it, it could drag on even longer. "Do you have the original deed?" "Yes. It's in my safety deposit box in Denver." "Good. Don't go back inside that lodge right now. Don't do anything that could be construed as confrontational. I'll start making calls, but for now, just leave. Go to a hotel. We'll figure this out through proper legal channels." "But Martin, this is my property. They're squatting in my home." I know. But if you try to force them out yourself, you could end up arrested. Let me handle this legally. I'll call you back in a few hours." I hung up, feeling defeated. I stood on the porch, looking out at the mountains, trying to gather my thoughts. This couldn't be happening. How had Derek done this? And why? I walked back inside. Derek was waiting, arms crossed, that smug look still on his face. "So, what did your lawyer say? That you're screwed?" I didn't answer. I was trying to stay calm, trying to think. Then Derek dropped the next bomb. "Oh, by the way, Dad, I should probably tell you something else. I filed a restraining order against you. Sheriff's deputy is coming by tomorrow to serve you the papers." I stared at him. "A restraining order? For what?" "For harassment and threats. You've been calling me constantly, showing up at my house, uninvited, making threatening statements. It's been really concerning." "That's a lie. I haven't called you in 2 months. That's not what my phone records show," Derek said. "I've documented everything. Every angry voicemail, every threatening text message. I felt like the ground was tilting beneath my feet. "I never sent you any threatening messages. The evidence says otherwise." Derek smiled. "And there's one more thing. We've reported to Adult Protective Services that you're mentally incompetent and a danger to yourself. We're seeking conservatorship over your assets. For your own protection, of course." The room seemed to spin. Conservatorship. That would give Derek control over everything. My consulting business, my savings, my home in Denver, everything. "You can't do this," I whispered. "We already did," Brenda said. "The paperwork was filed last week. We're just trying to help you, Clement. You're not capable of managing your own affairs anymore." Harold nodded solemnly. "It's for your own good. You should step aside gracefully and let the young people handle things. You've had a good run." I looked at my son, this man I had raised, whose college education I had paid for, who I had helped start his own business 10 years ago. The business that had failed within 2 years, costing me $50,000 I had never asked him to repay. Derek, please, don't do this. Do what, Dad? Take care of a senile old man who can't remember signing legal documents, who's becoming a danger to himself and others. It's the responsible thing to do. Gary and Phil moved closer again, and I realized they were positioning themselves between me and the door. Derek pulled out his cell phone. Now, I think it's time for you to leave. You're trespassing on my property. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. And when they get here, I'll show them the deed and the restraining order paperwork. They'll arrest you, Dad. Is that what you want? I looked around the room at these strangers in my home and at my son, who had become a stranger too. If I was arrested, it would only support their claims of incompetency. It would make everything worse. I'm leaving, I said quietly. But this isn't over. Derek laughed. Yeah, it is. You just don't know it yet. I walked out of my lodge, got into my truck, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw Derek standing on the porch, watching me go. He was smiling. I drove to Pine Ridge, the small town about 15 miles from the lodge, and checked into a motel. The Ponderosa Inn was a basic place, clean but worn, the kind of spot where hunters stayed during deer season. The clerk, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, took my credit card without much interest. The room smelled like pine cleaner and old carpet. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall, trying to process what had just happened. My own son had stolen my property, forged my signature, and was now trying to take everything I owned by having me declared incompetent. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's smirking face, heard Brenda's dismissive voice talking about Sarah's paintings like they were garbage. I thought about my father's rifles, each one a piece of history, now probably sold to some pawn shop for a fraction of their worth. At 3 a.m, I called Frank Palmer, my business partner. We had started our consulting firm together 25 years ago, building it from nothing into a successful practice with 15 employees and annual revenues over $2 million. Frank was more than a partner. He was a friend. Clement, do you know what time it is? Frank, I'm sorry, but something's happened. It's Derek. I told him everything. There was a long silence when I finished. That son of a... Frank caught himself. Sorry, but Clement, there's something you need to know. Derek has been calling our clients. My stomach dropped. What? About 3 weeks ago, he started reaching out to our top accounts. He told them you were retiring and that he would be taking over your client relationships. He said the transition would be smooth and that you were recommending him personally. I never said any of that. I know, but some clients believed him. Anderson Manufacturing shifted their contract to a different consultant last week. They said Derek told them you were having health problems and couldn't handle their account anymore. I tried to stop it, but Derek was very convincing. He said you had given him authorization. I felt sick. How many clients? 3 so far. Maybe more I don't know about yet. Clement, I tried calling you last week, but Derek said you were on an extended medical leave. He said you were dealing with cognitive decline, and the family was rallying around you. I didn't know what to believe. You weren't answering your cell. I checked my phone. 5 missed calls from Frank, all from last week when I had been in the mountains with no signal. Frank, I don't have cognitive decline. I'm fine. This is all Derek. He's lying. He's forged documents. He's trying to steal everything. I believe you. What do you need me to do? Just hold things together at the firm. Don't let him near any more clients. I'm going to fight this, but it might take time. You've got it. And Clement, whatever you need, I'm here. I hung up and sat in the dark, feeling the walls closing in. Derek wasn't just taking the lodge. He was systematically destroying my entire life. The next morning, I drove back to Denver. I needed to check things at home and get to my bank. The drive took 3 hours, and I spent every mile thinking about what Derek might have done that I didn't know about yet. My house in Denver was in a quiet neighborhood called Cherry Creek, a place Sarah and I had moved to 30 years ago when the kids were small. It was a 2-story brick colonial with a big backyard where Derek and Beth had played as children. Everything looked normal from the outside. But when I checked my mailbox, My hands started shaking. There were credit card bills I had never seen before, charges from stores I had never visited, restaurants I had never eaten at, hotels I had never stayed in, thousands of dollars on each card. Derek had been using my credit cards. There was also a notice from a mortgage company. I opened it with trembling fingers. My house, which had been paid off for 15 years, now had a second mortgage against it. $50,000. With Derek listed as a co-borrower. I had never signed for any mortgage. I got in my truck and drove straight to First National Bank, where I had banked for 30 years. Thomas Brennan, the branch manager, looked uncomfortable when I asked to see him. "Clement, I'm glad you're here. We need to talk." He led me into his office and closed the door. 3 weeks ago, your son came in with power of attorney documents. He tried to access your accounts, said you had authorized him to handle your finances. I never gave him power of attorney. I suspected as much. The signatures looked off to me, so I flagged it as suspicious and temporarily froze your accounts pending verification. But Derek threatened to sue the bank for elder abuse, claiming we were preventing a family member from helping you. Thomas opened a folder and showed me the documents. The signatures were good forgeries, but they weren't mine. Little details were wrong. The way I looped my T, the slant of my N. "I was about to call you," Thomas said, "but Derek told me you were in a care facility and couldn't be disturbed. He said you had given him permission to speak on your behalf. It's all lies. He's forging documents, stealing from me, trying to take everything." Thomas nodded slowly. "I believe you. But Clement, I have to tell you, this is serious. If he's been forging your signature on bank documents, that's federal fraud. You need to report this to the police." "I will. But first, I need to know the full extent of what he's done." Thomas pulled up my accounts on his computer. "Your checking and savings are still frozen pending resolution. But I can see there have been attempts to access them from outside the bank, online and through phone banking. Someone has been trying to use your account numbers and personal information. Derek, most likely. We've blocked everything for now, but you should change all your passwords and PINs immediately." I spent an hour at the bank, securing my accounts and filing fraud reports. Thomas promised to document everything for the police and my attorney. When I got home, I went through my mail more carefully. There were notices I had missed, letters from companies I didn't recognize, collection agencies trying to reach me about unpaid bills, credit card companies questioning suspicious charges. Derek had been busy. Then I checked my computer, the one I kept in my home office. I hadn't touched it in weeks. When I opened my email, I found messages I hadn't sent. Dozens of them, going back 2 months. They were sent to family members, old friends, colleagues. The messages all said basically the same thing. I was experiencing cognitive problems, becoming paranoid, making false accusations against family members. The emails asked people not to encourage my delusions and to support Derek's difficult decision to seek help for me. There were replies. Aunt Linda expressing concern. My college roommate Thomas saying he hoped I got the help I needed. My cousin Rachel offering to help Derek with the conservatorship process in any way she could. Everyone believed Derek. I scrolled through the emails, feeling more and more desperate. Derek had systematically destroyed my credibility with everyone who knew me. He had been planning this for months, laying groundwork, creating a narrative that I was mentally ill, and he was the devoted son trying to help. I called Martin. "I need to see you right away. It's worse than I thought." An hour later, I sat in Martin's office in downtown Denver, laying out everything I had discovered. The forged deed, the restraining order, the conservatorship filing, the stolen client accounts, the credit card fraud, the fake mortgage, the poisoned relationships. Martin took notes, his face growing grimmer with each revelation. He was 72 years old, with white hair and sharp blue eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. We had been friends since law school. "Clement, this is a criminal conspiracy," he said finally. "Derek hasn't just committed fraud. He's engaged in identity theft, forgery, elder abuse, possibly wire fraud if he's been using electronic communications. This is federal and state-level crime. Can we stop the conservatorship? We'll file an emergency motion, but the hearing is already scheduled for 2 weeks from now. The court will want evidence that you're competent. We should get you evaluated by a doctor, someone independent who can testify that you're of sound mind. What about the lodge? That's trickier. The deed is officially registered. We'll need a forensic document examiner to prove the signature is forged. That will cost money and time. How much? $15,000 for a full court-ready report. 2 weeks minimum for the analysis. I wrote Martin a check on the spot. Do it. And Martin, I want Derek prosecuted. I want him arrested. We'll get there. But first, we need to build an airtight case. If we move too fast and he wriggles out on a technicality, he walks free and you lose everything. That afternoon, a sheriff's deputy came to my house and served me with the restraining order. I was now legally barred from going within 500 feet of the mountain lodge or contacting Derek directly. If I violated the order, I would be arrested. I felt trapped, like walls were closing in from every direction. Derek had the lodge. He had damaged my business. He had stolen money. He had poisoned my reputation. And now he had a legal order preventing me from even confronting him. That night, I tried to call my daughter Beth. She lived in Seattle, working as a graphic designer. We had always been close, much closer than I was with Derek. She would believe me. She would help. But when Beth answered, her voice was cold. Dad, I was wondering when you'd call. Beth, honey, I need to talk to you about Derek. I know what you're going to say. Derek already told me everything. He sent me the emails you've been writing, the paranoid accusations. He showed me pictures of you looking confused at Thanksgiving. He even sent me a medical report saying you have early-stage dementia. My blood ran cold. What medical report? I've never been diagnosed with dementia. I don't have dementia. Dad, please, you need to accept that you need help. Derek is trying to do the right thing. I know it's hard to admit you're not as sharp as you used to be, but fighting this will only make things worse. Beth, listen to me. Derek is lying. He's forged documents. He's stolen the lodge. He's trying to take everything. There is no medical report because I've never been examined for dementia. I'm completely sound. That's what someone with dementia would say, Beth said, and I could hear she was crying. Dad, I love you, but I think Derek is right. The conservatorship is for your own protection. Please, just accept it. Let us help you. I don't need help. I need you to believe me. I want to believe you, but Derek showed me proof. The emails, the documents, everything. Dad, I have to go. I'm sorry. She hung up. I called back, but she didn't answer. I sat in my living room, in the house where I had raised my children, and realized I was completely alone. Derek had taken everything from me, including my own daughter. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare. Martin filed emergency motions to contest the deed transfer, stop the conservatorship proceedings, and report the fraud to law enforcement. But legal processes move slowly, grinding along with hearings and filings and procedural requirements that seem designed to torture someone in my situation. The forensic document examiner, a woman named Patricia Chen, began her analysis of the forged deed. She was meticulous and professional, but she made it clear the work would take time. Every curve of every letter had to be analyzed, compared against known samples of my handwriting, examined under microscopes and with computer analysis. Forgery cases are won on details, she told me. We need to build an unshakable case. Meanwhile, I had to see a psychologist for a cognitive evaluation to prove I was mentally competent. Dr. Raymond Foster was in his 60s, with kind eyes and a gentle manner. He put me through hours of tests, memory exercises, problem-solving tasks, personality assessments. Mr. Clement, he said after the evaluation, you're one of the most cognitively intact people I've tested in years. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is sound. Your judgment is clear. There is no evidence of dementia, cognitive decline, or any mental impairment whatsoever. It was a relief to hear, but also infuriating. I had spent hundreds of dollars and hours of my time proving something I already knew. I was fine. The restraining order was still in effect. I couldn't go near the lodge, couldn't talk to Derek, but I could watch from a distance, and I did. I drove up to the mountains and parked on a public road about half a mile from the property, using binoculars to see what was happening. What I saw made me sick. Moving trucks, Brenda and her brothers loading furniture, boxes, items from inside the lodge. They were stealing everything, piece by piece. I called Martin. They're cleaning out the lodge. Don't go near them. Don't violate the restraining order. I'll file another motion. But Clement, until we prove the deed is fraudulent, they technically have legal right to that property. They're stealing from me, I know. But if you confront them and get arrested, it will only support Derek's claims that you're unstable. I felt helpless. Every instinct screamed at me to drive up there, to physically throw them out of my property. But I knew Martin was right. One wrong move and I would lose everything. The stress was taking a physical toll. I started getting chest pains. One night, staying at my friend Jerome's house in Denver, the pain got so bad that Jerome rushed me to the emergency room. The ER doctor, a young woman named Harris, ran tests. It's not a heart attack, but your blood pressure is dangerously high, 190/120. Mr. Clement, whatever is causing you this much stress, you need to address it. This level of hypertension can kill you. She prescribed medication and ordered me to reduce stress. I almost laughed. Reduce stress? Sure. Jerome Washington had been my friend since college. We had met freshman year and stayed close for almost 50 years. He was a retired engineer, a widower like me, and when I told him I needed a place to stay, he didn't hesitate. Stay as long as you need, he said. And Clement, we're going to beat this kid, I promise you. The court hearing for the conservatorship finally arrived. Martin and I walked into the courthouse in downtown Denver, carrying files and evidence. Derek was there with Brenda and a lawyer I didn't recognize, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit named Preston Wright. The judge was Marilyn Torres, a stern woman in her mid-50s, with a reputation for being fair but no nonsense. We took our seats and the hearing began. Preston Wright presented Derek's case first. He painted a picture of a devoted son trying to help an aging father who was losing his grip on reality. He submitted the forged emails as evidence of my paranoia. He showed photographs of me at family gatherings, carefully chosen shots where I looked tired or confused, taken out of context. Then he called his star witness. Dr. Howard Phillips was a psychiatrist, about 60 years old, with gray hair and an air of authority. He took the stand and swore to tell the truth. Dr. Phillips, Wright said, have you evaluated Clement? Not directly. No. But I have reviewed extensive documentation provided by family members, including email correspondence, statements from relatives, and behavioral observations. Based on this material, it is my professional opinion that Clement shows signs of cognitive impairment consistent with early-stage dementia. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man had never met me, never examined me, and he was testifying that I was mentally incompetent. Martin stood up. Your Honor, this witness has never personally evaluated my client. His testimony is based entirely on second-hand information provided by interested parties. Judge Torres looked at Dr. Phillips. Is this true, Doctor? You've never met or examined Mr. Clement? That's correct, Your Honor. However, in cases of elder cognitive decline, family observations are often the most reliable indicators. I have a problem with that, Judge Torres said. Mr. Hayes, do you have any witnesses? Martin called Dr. Foster, who testified about my cognitive evaluation. He presented test results, detailed reports, clear evidence that I was completely competent. Mr. Clement's cognitive function is well above average for his age, Dr. Foster said. There is absolutely no evidence of dementia or any other impairment. But then Preston Wright stood up and challenged the evaluation. Dr. Foster, isn't it true that individuals with early-stage dementia can often perform well on standardized tests, particularly in familiar, low-stress environments? That can be true in some cases, Dr. Foster admitted. So your evaluation doesn't rule out cognitive decline. It strongly suggests no impairment exists. But it doesn't rule it out completely? Dr. Foster hesitated. No medical test is 100% conclusive. Wright smiled. It was a small victory for him, and he knew it. Martin then presented evidence of the fraud, the forged deed, the fake power of attorney documents, the credit card theft. But Wright countered that these were all disputed claims under investigation and had no bearing on whether I needed a conservator. "Your Honor," Wright said, "even if some of these allegations are true, they only prove that Mr. Clement is vulnerable and needs protection. The conservatorship would actually safeguard him from potential exploitation." It was a clever argument. Turned my evidence of Derek's crimes into proof that I needed Derek to protect me. Judge Torres listened to everything, made notes, asked questions. Finally, she spoke. "This is a complex situation. I'm not prepared to grant full conservatorship at this time. However, given the disputed financial matters and the conflicting evidence about Mr. Clement's capacity, I'm appointing a temporary guardian to oversee his finances during the investigation. This guardian will ensure that Mr. Clement's assets are protected and that all financial decisions are made in his best interest." My heart sank. "Your Honor, I don't need a guardian. I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs. Mr. Clement, this is a temporary measure until these matters are resolved. The guardian will report to the court monthly. We'll reconvene in 60 days to review the situation." The guardian she appointed was named Walter Simmons, a professional fiduciary who worked with the court on elder cases. His fee was $200 per hour, paid from my accounts. As we left the courthouse, Derek smiled at me. "See you in 60 days, Dad. Unless you come to your senses before then." I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream. But I just walked away. That evening, Martin called me with more bad news. "Clement, I did some digging on Walter Simmons. He's from Pine Ridge originally. His brother went to high school with Harold, Brenda's father. You're saying the guardian is connected to them?" "I'm saying it's a very small town, and people have relationships. I can't prove collusion, but it's concerning." Over the next week, my fears were confirmed. Walter Simmons approved payments from my accounts for lodge maintenance, money that went straight to Brenda's family. When I objected, he said the invoices looked legitimate and he had a fiduciary duty to maintain the property. My consulting business was collapsing. Without full access to my finances and with my reputation destroyed among clients, I couldn't operate effectively. Frank came to me with a proposal. "Clement, I don't want to do this, but I need to buy you out. The firm can't survive like this. Derek has poisoned too many relationships. I'll give you $300,000 for your half." The business was worth at least $700,000, probably more. But I had no choice. I needed money for legal fees and living expenses, and I couldn't let Frank go down with me. "Do it," I said. Frank wrote me a check, and just like that, the business I had spent 25 years building was gone. A few days later, my neighbor near the lodge called me. "Clement, I thought you should know. There are moving trucks at your place again." I drove up to the mountains, careful to stay outside the restraining order perimeter. I parked on a public overlook about 800 feet from the lodge and watched through binoculars. Derek and Brenda were loading furniture into a commercial truck. Sarah's handmade dining table, the one she had spent 6 months building in our garage. The oak bookshelf I had made for our anniversary. The antique dresser that had belonged to my grandmother. They were selling everything. I watched until it was too dark to see, then drove back to Jerome's house. I didn't eat dinner. I couldn't. I just sat in the guest room, staring at the wall. The next morning, I woke up with crushing chest pain. Jerome found me on the floor and called 911. Back in the ER, Dr. Harris looked at me with concern. "Mr. Clement, this is your second visit in 2 weeks. Your blood pressure is still dangerously high despite medication. You're at serious risk of a stroke or heart attack. Whatever is happening in your life, you need to find a way to manage it." "I can't," I whispered. "I'm losing everything." Jerome sat beside my hospital bed. "No, you're not. We're going to fight this. We're going to win." But I didn't believe him. Derek was 3 steps ahead of me at every turn. The legal system was slow and expensive. My health was failing. My money was running out. One night, I sat in Jerome's guest room and considered just giving up. I was 68 years old. Maybe I should just walk away, leave Colorado, start over somewhere else with whatever money I had left. Let Derek have the lodge, have the satisfaction of destroying his father. Maybe it wasn't worth fighting anymore. I thought about Sarah, about how disappointed she would be if she could see what Derek had become, how disappointed she would be if she saw me giving up. But I was so tired, so beaten down. I didn't know if I had any fight left. The low point came 3 days later, when Martin called with news that made me want to put my fist through a wall. "Clement, Derek has listed the lodge for sale. He can't do that. The deed is still being investigated. The forged deed is officially registered pending the investigation. That gives him legal standing to list the property. I've filed for an emergency injunction, but Derek has already accepted an offer." "From who?" "A real estate developer named Consolidated Mountain Properties. They want to tear down the lodge and build luxury condos. The offer is $800,000. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. $800,000 for the place Sarah and I built with our own hands. The place where we had spent our happiest years, where her ashes were scattered. How long until the sale closes? 60 days if the injunction doesn't go through. But here's the worst part. The developer put down a $50,000 non-refundable deposit. Derek has already accepted it. Even if we stop the sale, that money is his unless we can prove fraud before it closes." I hung up and sat in Jerome's living room, feeling the last of my hope drain away. Derek was going to sell the lodge out from under me while I fought a legal battle I might not win. That night, Walter Simmons, the court-appointed guardian, called me. "Mr. Clement, I need to discuss your financial situation. Your legal fees are mounting. You've depleted most of your liquid savings. I'm concerned about your ability to maintain your current lifestyle." "My current lifestyle? I'm living in my friend's guest room. Nevertheless, the expenditures are significant. I may need to impose spending limits to preserve your assets." "Those are my assets. I earned that money. Actually, as your temporary guardian, I have a fiduciary responsibility to manage those assets prudently. I'll be sending you a monthly budget." After he hung up, I looked at the call log on my phone. Walter had called from a Pine Ridge number. I did a reverse lookup. The number belonged to a law office in Pine Ridge, the same office that had notarized Derek's forged deed. The conspiracy was deeper than I thought. Patricia Chen, the forensic document examiner, finally delivered her report. It was thorough and damning. She had analyzed the signature on the deed transfer and compared it to dozens of authentic samples of my handwriting. "The signature is a sophisticated forgery," she wrote. "Analysis shows consistent differences in letter formation, pen pressure, and stroke patterns. The forger studied Mr. Clement's signature carefully, but made several telltale errors, particularly in the formation of the capital C and the terminal stroke of the T. In my professional opinion, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, this signature was not written by Clement. The report cost me $15,000, but it was worth every penny. It was proof. Martin filed new motions based on the forensic analysis. The judge scheduled another hearing, but it was 4 weeks away. 4 weeks during which Derek could continue selling off my belongings and moving toward closing the lodge sale. I tried once more to reach Beth. She finally answered after I called 6 times in a row. "Dad, please stop." "Beth, I have proof. Forensic proof that Derek forged the deed. A handwriting expert analyzed everything. Derek is a criminal. He's stealing from me." "Dad, Derek told me you would say things like this. He said you'd become paranoid and accusatory. This is part of the dementia." "I don't have dementia. I had a full cognitive evaluation. I'm completely sound. Of course you think that." Her voice was gentle, pitying. "Dad, people with dementia don't realize they have dementia. That's part of the illness." "Beth, please, you're my daughter. You know me. Have I ever lied to you?" She was quiet for a long moment. "No, but Derek says the lying is part of the decline. You don't even realize you're doing it. What will it take for you to believe me?" "I don't know, Dad. I just don't know." She hung up. I didn't call back. What was the point? The next day, I got a notice in the mail. Brenda's family was suing me. They claimed I owed them $30,000 for improvements and repairs they had made to the lodge. They had invoices, receipts, photographs of work supposedly done. It was all fake, but I would have to defend against it in court. More legal fees, more time, more money draining away. Frank came by to check on me. He looked worried. "Clement, I hate to bring this up, but some of our former clients are asking questions. Derek has been telling people that you're sick. that you're not able to work anymore. It's affecting the firm's reputation. What do you want me to do, Frank? I can't control what Derek says. I know. I'm just telling you what's happening. Some clients are wondering if the firm is stable, if we can be trusted. Are you asking me to make a public statement? I don't know what I'm asking. I just thought you should know. After Frank left, I sat alone in Jerome's house and took stock of my situation. My business was gone. My lodge was being sold. My reputation was destroyed. My relationship with my daughter was shattered. My health was failing. My money was running out. The legal system seemed designed to protect Derek rather than expose him. I had lost almost everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up at 2 in the morning and walked around Jerome's quiet neighborhood, trying to clear my head. The Denver streets were empty, street lights casting long shadows. I thought about Sarah, about how she used to walk with me on nights when I was stressed about work or worried about the kids. What would you do? I whispered to the empty street. How do I fight this? But Sarah was gone, her ashes scattered in a garden that Derek was about to sell to developers who would bulldoze everything. I thought about my father, who had taught me to never back down from bullies. But my father had never faced a bully who was his own son, who used the law as a weapon, who had no limits to his cruelty. I thought about just ending it. Not my life, but the fight. Signing papers, giving Derek what he wanted, walking away with whatever scraps remained. I could move to another state, live quietly, try to forget I ever had a son named Derek. It would be so much easier than continuing this battle. When I got back to Jerome's house, he was up, making coffee in the kitchen. Couldn't sleep? He asked. No. You thinking about giving up? I looked at him, surprised. How did you know? Because I would be. Hell, most people would have given up already. What Derek is doing to you, it's evil. Plain evil. I'm tired, Jerome. I'm 68 years old. I'm sick. I'm broke. And I'm losing. Jerome poured 2 cups of coffee and handed me one. You know what I think? I think Derek is counting on you giving up. That's his whole strategy. Grind you down until you have nothing left. But here's what he doesn't understand about you, Clement. You're stubborn as hell. Always have been. Stubborn doesn't win legal battles. No, but it keeps you fighting long enough to find a way to win. Sarah used to say that about you, remember? She'd say, Jerome, Clement is the most stubborn man alive. Once he sets his mind to something, you might as well accept it's going to happen. I smiled despite everything. She did say that. So the question is, have you set your mind to beating Derek? Or are you really thinking about quitting? I drank my coffee and thought about my father's rifles, each one with a story, all of them now gone. I thought about Sarah's paintings, her artwork that she poured her soul into, thrown away like garbage. I thought about the lodge, the place we built together log by log, about to be torn down for condos. I thought about Derek's sneer when he called me a bottom feeder. I'm not quitting, I said. Good, because I have an idea. Jerome's idea was simple. Go back to the beginning. Look at everything with fresh eyes. Derek didn't wake up one day and decide to do all this, Jerome said. He's been planning it. There has to be evidence of the planning. Emails, text messages, conversations with Brenda or her family. We need to find it. How? I can't access Derek's email or phone. No, but you can access your own. What if Derek or Brenda sent you something months ago? What if there are clues in your own records that you missed? I spent the next 2 days going through every email, every text message, every piece of paper in my house. I looked at old bank statements, credit card records, phone logs, and I found something. 8 months ago, there was a charge on my credit card for a locksmith service in Pine Ridge. $150. I didn't remember hiring a locksmith, but at the time I had assumed it was a legitimate charge, maybe something I forgot about. But now, looking at it with suspicious eyes, I realized what it was. Derek had my credit card number somehow. He had used it to pay a locksmith to change the locks on the lodge. That's how he got in initially. I found more. Small charges here and there, going back almost a year. A hardware store in Pine Ridge, a furniture rental company, a notary service. Derek had been using my credit card to fund his takeover. and I had been too trusting to notice. Martin added these findings to our case file. This shows planning, premeditation. It strengthens the fraud claim. But the court date was still 3 weeks away. 3 weeks during which Derek continued to operate as the owner of my lodge. Then something unexpected happened. I got a call from one of the neighbors near the lodge, a woman named Susan Harper. She and her husband owned the property adjacent to mine. Mr. Clement, I don't know if this matters, but I thought I should tell you. About 7 months ago, I saw Derek at the lodge with some men I didn't recognize. They were taking measurements, talking about construction. Derek told me he was planning to surprise you with some improvements, but the way he said it seemed odd, like he was lying. Do you remember what month that was? February, maybe early March, right after that big snowstorm we had. That was before Derek supposedly moved into the lodge. He had been up there, planning something, months before he claimed to have taken possession of the property. Mrs. Harper, would you be willing to testify to that in court? If it helps, yes. Derek always seemed like a nice boy when he was young. I'm sorry to see what he's become. Martin subpoenaed her testimony. It was another piece of evidence showing Derek's premeditation. But Derek wasn't idle. The developer, Consolidated Mountain Properties, started pressuring for the sale to close. They wanted the property. Derek wanted his money. My injunction was the only thing stopping them. Then Derek's lawyer, Preston Wright, filed a motion claiming that my legal actions were causing Derek financial harm and that I should be liable for damages if the sale fell through. It was absurd, but it tied up more time and money. Meanwhile, Walter Simmons was making my life miserable. He imposed a monthly budget that barely covered my legal fees and basic living expenses. He questioned every expenditure, demanded receipts for everything, treated me like a child who couldn't be trusted with money, and he kept approving payments to Brenda's family for lodge maintenance. Thousands of dollars flowing out of my accounts into their pockets, with invoices that claimed they were repairing a roof that didn't need repairs, replacing windows that weren't broken, resurfacing a driveway that was fine. I complained to Judge Torres, but she said I had to take it up with Walter. When I tried to talk to Walter, he said he had to approve legitimate expenses and the invoices looked proper. It was a closed loop designed to drain my money. My health continued to decline. The blood pressure medication helped, but I was losing weight, not sleeping, constantly on edge. Jerome forced me to eat, made sure I took my pills, but he couldn't make the stress go away. One morning, I got a call from my cousin Rachel in New York. She and I had been close as kids but had drifted apart over the years. Clement, I need to apologize to you. For what? For believing Derek. He sent me emails months ago saying you were sick, asking me to support his conservatorship petition. I signed a statement saying I was concerned about you, but I just talked to Martin Hayes, and he told me what's really happening. I feel terrible. It's not your fault. Derek is very convincing. I'm withdrawing my statement, and I'm calling everyone in the family I talked to about this. I'm going to tell them the truth. It was a small victory, but it mattered. At least some family members would know Derek had lied. The next day, the developer's lawyer called Martin. My client is getting impatient. If this sale doesn't close within 30 days, they're pulling out, and they'll sue Mr. Clement for tortious interference with a business relationship. More lawsuits, more money, more stress. I sat with Jerome in his living room, feeling the walls close in again. I can't keep this up, I said. The legal bills are over $80,000 now. My accounts are restricted. Derek is bleeding me dry through Walter. Even if I win in court, I'll be broke. Jerome was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Do you remember when we built that lodge? You and Sarah spent 2 years on it. Weekends, holidays, every spare moment. You poured your life into that place." I remember. And do you remember what you told me when the foundation kept flooding and you had to rebuild it 3 times? You said, "Jerome, some things are worth doing no matter how hard they are." You didn't give up then. Don't give up now. I was younger then. I had Sarah. I had hope. You still have hope. You're just too tired to see it right now. That night, I dreamed about Sarah. We were at the lodge, sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset over the mountains. She took my hand and said, "Don't let him win, Clement. Don't let Derek take this away from us." I woke up with tears on my face. The next morning, I called Martin. "I need you to do something. I need you to subpoena all of Derek's financial records. Bank statements, credit cards, phone records, everything. There has to be evidence of what he's been doing. That will be expensive. We'll have to get a court order. Do it, whatever it costs." Martin filed the motion. Derek's lawyer fought it, claiming it was a fishing expedition. But Judge Torres, perhaps finally seeing the extent of Derek's deception, granted it. When the records came through, we struck gold. Derek had opened a new bank account 6 months before claiming the lodge was his. He had deposited exactly $15,000, the amount he would have gotten from selling my father's rifle collection. There were also deposits matching the amounts from selling Sarah's furniture, my grandmother's dresser, everything he had stolen. He had been liquidating my property and hiding the money in a secret account. There were also text messages between Derek and Brenda, retrieved from phone company records. Messages that said things like, "Dad will never figure it out. And by the time he realizes what's happening, it will be too late. And the old man is so trusting. This is almost too easy." Martin built a timeline showing Derek's criminal conspiracy, from the first locksmith charge on my credit card to the secret bank account to the text messages showing intent. It was devastating evidence. The court hearing finally arrived. Martin presented everything. Patricia Chen's forensic analysis, proving the signature was forged, the timeline of Derek's criminal acts, the secret bank account, the text messages, Susan Harper's testimony about Derek's suspicious behavior months before he claimed the lodge, my cognitive evaluation proving I was sound of mind. Derek's lawyer tried to spin it, claiming the evidence was circumstantial, that the text messages were taken out of context, that the secret account was for legitimate business purposes. But Judge Torres wasn't buying it anymore. Her face was stern as she listened to the evidence pile up. When it was Derek's turn to testify, Martin cross-examined him mercilessly. "Mr. Clement, you claim your father gave you the lodge 3 years ago. Why didn't you record the deed transfer until 8 months ago?" I didn't think about it. I was busy." "You were too busy to record a deed to property worth $800,000. I guess I just didn't prioritize it. Or maybe you waited until you had forged the signature and were ready to execute your plan." Preston Wright objected. But the damage was done. Derek looked guilty, and he knew it. Martin presented the text messages. "Mr. Clement, did you send these messages to your wife?" Derek's face went pale as he read them. They don't mean what you think. They seem pretty clear to me. Dad will never figure it out. The old man is so trusting. You were planning to defraud your father, weren't you?" "No. We were just joking around. Joking about stealing your father's property." Derek had no good answer. Judge Torres called a recess. When she returned, her decision was swift. "Based on the evidence presented, I find that the deed transfer was fraudulent. The signature has been proven through forensic analysis to be a forgery. The timeline of events shows clear premeditation and criminal intent. The restraining order is lifted immediately. The conservatorship proceeding is dismissed with prejudice. Derek Clement and Brenda Clement are ordered to vacate the lodge within 24 hours and return all property belonging to Clement. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution." Derek stood up, his face red. "You can't do this. We've put money into that place. We have rights." Judge Torres stared him down. "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you exercise it before I hold you in contempt. Bailiff, clear the courtroom." As we left, Derek pushed past me, his face twisted with rage. "This isn't over," he hissed. "I'll appeal. I'll fight this forever." But for the first time in months, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. The next morning, I drove up to the lodge with Jerome and Martin. We brought a sheriff's deputy with us, a young man named Daniels who looked uncomfortable with the whole situation. When we arrived, Derek's truck was still in the driveway. The front door was locked. I knocked, but there was no answer. Deputy Daniels knocked harder. "Derek Clement, this is the sheriff's department. You have a court order to vacate these premises. Open the door." Still nothing. Daniels tried the handle. Locked. He looked at me. Do you have a key? No. Derek changed the locks. Then I'm authorized to force entry. He radioed for backup, and within 20 minutes another deputy arrived with tools to remove the door lock. When we finally got inside, we found Derek and Brenda sitting in the living room, arms crossed, refusing to move. Harold was there too, along with Gary and Phil. They all sat like they were staging a protest. You can't make us leave, Derek said. I'm appealing the judge's decision. Until the appeal is heard, we have a right to stay. Deputy Daniels shook his head. That's not how it works. The judge issued a vacate order. You need to leave now. And if we don't, Brenda challenged, then I arrest you for trespassing. This is harassment, Harold said, standing up to his full, intimidating height. We know our rights. Sir, you need to leave the property, Daniel said firmly. All of you. Right now. For a moment, I thought they might actually resist physically. Gary and Phil stood up, flexing their muscles. But Daniels put his hand on his service weapon, and that seemed to change the calculation. Fine, Derek spat. But you'll regret this, Dad. I swear to God, you'll regret this. They filed out slowly, making a show of how wronged they were. Brenda deliberately bumped into me as she passed, hard enough to make me stumble. Jerome caught my arm. When they were finally gone, I walked through my lodge, seeing the damage they had done. The walls were scuffed. There were cigarette burns on the wood floors Sarah had lovingly finished by hand. The kitchen was filthy, dishes piled in the sink, garbage overflowing. Most of my belongings were gone. The rifles, the paintings, the furniture, the photo albums, all of it stolen or sold. But the lodge itself was still standing. The logs Sarah and I had cut and fitted, the stone fireplace I had built, the windows overlooking the mountains where we used to watch eagles soar. It was damaged, but it was mine again. Martin put his hand on my shoulder. It's not over yet. Derek can appeal, though I doubt he'll win. And there's still the criminal prosecution. I know, but at least I have this back. Jerome looked around. We've got a lot of work to do. This place is a mess. I'll help, Martin said. Weekends, whenever you need me. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not quite happiness, but something close. Relief, maybe. Or vindication. That afternoon, after Jerome and Martin left, I sat alone on the back porch where Sarah and I used to watch sunsets. The garden where her ashes were scattered was overgrown but intact. I made a mental note to clean it up, plant new flowers, restore it the way she would have wanted. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Clement? This is Special Agent Morrison with the FBI. My heart skipped. The FBI? Yes, sir. I understand you've been the victim of identity theft, wire fraud, and financial crimes. Your attorney, Mr. Hayes, contacted us several weeks ago. We've been investigating. I sat up straight. What does that mean? It means we've been building a case against your son and his associates. Wire fraud and identity theft across state lines are federal crimes. We've been quietly gathering evidence, and we're ready to move forward with arrests. Arrests? Yes, sir. Based on what we've found, we have enough to charge Derek Clement, Brenda Clement, and Harold Parker with multiple federal crimes. We'll also be charging Walter Simmons with conspiracy and fraud for his role as your guardian. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, gripping the phone. Mr. Clement, are you there? Yes, I'm here. I can't believe this. We take elder abuse very seriously, especially when it involves financial fraud. Your son and his associates have committed serious crimes. They're going to face justice. When will you arrest them? Tonight. We have warrants being served as we speak. I wanted to give you a heads up before you see it on the news. After we hung up, I sat on the porch for a long time, watching the sun sink toward the mountains. I thought about calling Jerome, calling Martin, calling Beth, but I just sat there, letting it all sink in. Derek was going to be arrested. After months of torment, after losing almost everything, after being called senile and incompetent and paranoid, justice was finally coming. That night, I got a call from Beth. Dad, I just saw on the news. Derek was arrested by the FBI. They're saying he committed fraud, identity theft. They're saying he stole from you. It's all true, Beth. She was crying. I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have listened. Derek sent me all that fake evidence, and I just accepted it. I didn't even question it. I'm a terrible daughter. No, you're not. Derek is very good at lying. He fooled a lot of people. Can you forgive me? There's nothing to forgive. You're my daughter. I love you. I'm flying out tomorrow. I'm going to help you fix up the lodge, restore everything Derek destroyed. I'm going to make this right. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. I failed you, Dad. Let me help now. After we hung up, I felt something break loose inside me. All the tension, all the fear, all the anger I had been carrying for months. I sat on the porch and cried, not from sadness, but from release. It was finally over. The next morning, I learned the full extent of what the FBI had found. Derek had been planning this for over a year. He had studied my handwriting, practiced forging my signature, researched conservatorship laws, built relationships with corrupt officials in Pine Ridge. Harold had been part of it from the beginning, providing muscle and connections. Brenda had been the one to suggest reporting me to Adult Protective Services. Gary and Phil had helped sell my stolen property and intimidate anyone who asked questions. Walter Simmons had taken bribes to approve fraudulent expenses and restrict my access to money. It had been a conspiracy involving multiple people, all designed to strip me of everything I owned and leave me helpless. But they had made mistakes. The text messages Derek and Brenda thought were private were actually stored on phone company servers. The secret bank account left a digital trail. The forged signatures could be proven fake with scientific analysis, and I had refused to give up. The federal prosecutor, a woman named Catherine Walsh, called me to discuss the case. Mr. Clement, we have enough evidence to convict everyone involved. But I want to be transparent with you about the process. Federal trials can take a year or more. Your son will likely try to negotiate a plea deal. I don't want him getting off easy. He won't. The evidence is too strong. Even with a plea deal, he's looking at significant prison time. Wire fraud, identity theft, elder abuse. These are serious charges with mandatory minimum sentences. How much time? If convicted on all charges, your son could face 15 to 20 years. The others will face less, but still substantial sentences. I thought about Derek as a little boy, running through the lodge, laughing, playing. Where had that boy gone? When had he turned into the man who could do this to his own father? I want him prosecuted to the full extent of the law, I said. Understood. Over the next few days, Beth arrived, and we began the work of restoring the lodge. We cleaned, repaired, replaced what could be replaced. She helped me go through insurance claims for the stolen items. The developer who had wanted to buy the property called, angry about losing his deposit. Martin negotiated a settlement. I returned $40,000 as a gesture of good faith, keeping $10,000 to offset some of my legal costs. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about doing the right thing. Frank came up to the lodge with his wife. Clement, I want you to come back to the firm as a senior consultant. We need your experience, and your clients miss you. I don't know if I'm ready. Take your time, but know the door is open. Martin submitted bills for his legal work. Over $90,000 total. I had the money now that my accounts were unfrozen, but it still hurt to write that check. That was my retirement savings, money I had planned to use for travel, for enjoying my remaining years. But it had been worth it to save the lodge, to save my dignity, to expose Derek's crimes. Judge Torres issued a final order, removing Walter Simmons as guardian and restoring my full control over my finances. She also referred him to the state bar for disciplinary action. The pieces of my life were slowly coming back together, but the hardest part was still ahead. The criminal trial. 4 months later, the trial began. Derek, Brenda, Harold, and Walter Simmons all sat at the defense table with their lawyers. Derek wouldn't look at me. Brenda glared with pure hatred. Harold looked resigned. Walter looked scared. The prosecution presented their case methodically. The forged signatures, the secret bank account, The text messages showing conspiracy. The testimony from Patricia Chen about the forensic analysis. The timeline of criminal acts. Derek's lawyer tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding. That Derek genuinely believed I had given him the property and was just trying to protect me. But the text messages destroyed that defense. Dad will never figure it out. The old man is so trusting. Those messages showed intent to deceive. Brenda's lawyer tried to claim she was just following her husband's lead, that she didn't know it was fraud, but her own text messages showed she was a full participant. I can't wait to sell this place and buy a house in Florida was one of them. Your dad is so gullible, we're going to clean him out was another. Harold tried to claim he was just helping his daughter, but the evidence showed he had bribed Walter Simmons and had helped plan the conspiracy from the beginning. Walter's defense was the weakest. He had accepted money to betray his fiduciary duty. There was no excuse for that. I testified on the third day. I told my story from the beginning, finding Derek in my lodge, the forged documents, the restraining order, the conservatorship attempt, the theft of my property, the destruction of my reputation, the financial devastation. I spoke clearly and calmly, trying to help the jury understand what had been done to me. Not just the legal crimes, but the emotional devastation of being betrayed by your own child. Derek's lawyer cross-examined me, trying to suggest I was confused, that my memory was faulty. But I had documents, evidence, proof of everything I claimed. When I stepped down from the witness stand, I looked at Derek one more time. He was staring at his hands, avoiding my eyes. Beth testified next. She explained how Derek had manipulated her with fake evidence, how she had believed him because he was her brother. She apologized to me in front of the jury. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found Derek guilty on all charges: wire fraud, identity theft, elder abuse, conspiracy. Brenda was convicted of conspiracy and theft. Harold was convicted of conspiracy and bribery. Walter was convicted of fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. At sentencing 3 months later, Judge Michael Richardson showed no mercy. Derek was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Brenda got 3 years. Harold got 2 years. Walter got 18 months and lost his professional license. Derek finally looked at me as they led him away in handcuffs. His face was filled with rage and hatred, not remorse. Even now, facing prison, he couldn't admit what he had done was wrong. I felt no satisfaction seeing him led away, just sadness for what might have been. The lodge is mine again. I've restored most of what Derek destroyed. Beth comes to visit regularly. We've repaired our relationship, though it will take time to fully heal. I opened the lodge as a retreat center for seniors dealing with elder abuse and financial exploitation by family members. Every month, I host workshops where people can learn about their legal rights, connect with resources, get help navigating the system I had to fight through. It's my way of making something positive come from this nightmare. My consulting business is doing well. Frank and I rebuilt the client relationships Derek damaged. Some clients came back, others didn't, but we're stable. My health has improved. My blood pressure is under control. I'm sleeping better. The weight I lost has come back. Jerome still checks on me regularly. Martin has become more than just my attorney. He's a true friend. I think about Sarah a lot. I wish she could see the lodge now, restored and being used to help others. I think she would be proud. I learned something important through all of this. Evil often wears a familiar face. The worst betrayals come from those we trust most. Derek was my son, but he chose greed over love. He chose cruelty over compassion. But I also learned that you're never too old to fight for what's right. When Derek started his campaign against me, I was 68 years old, exhausted and stressed. I could have given up. Part of me wanted to, but some things are worth fighting for. Your dignity, your property, your truth. Justice may be slow, but it's worth pursuing. I learned that family isn't just blood. Derek was my biological son, but he stopped being family when he betrayed me. Jerome, Martin, Beth, the people who stood by me, they're my real family. And I learned that resilience isn't about being strong all the time. It's about getting back up after you've been knocked down. It's about refusing to surrender, even when everything seems lost. If you're facing something similar, if someone you trusted has turned against you, here's what I want you to know. Don't give up. Document everything. Get good legal help. Trust the people who stand by you. And remember that the moment you surrender is the moment they win. Stand up. Speak truth. Fight back. Because justice, real justice, is worth fighting for. I'm 70 years old now. The lodge is peaceful. The mountains are beautiful. Sarah's garden is blooming again. And I'm at peace. I won. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you trusted? How did you handle it? What would you have done in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's going through something similar. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear it, anyone who's fighting their own battle against injustice. Your support helps me continue sharing these stories and helping others find the courage to stand up for themselves. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was long, but I wanted to share every detail so you could understand what happened and how I survived it. May you never face what I faced. But if you do, may you find the strength to fight back and the people to stand beside you. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And never, ever give up on justice.